I think I'm going to be the scoundrel by the time we're done with here that Ralph was talking about. I've got a lot of things I'd like to say, and they're going to be, some of them not so pleasant. And the pleasant thing is that I'm going to be enjoying my retirement. And it's only going to take about a minute for every year I put in. But what most of these folks don't understand is the laws they broke by telling the things they did about me. And I'll explain that as I go through. And I think it'll become clear why I was the target by the time I get through with all of this. I've dedicated many years of my life to this city, and I'm not going to go away without contesting the damage to my reputation by political activists, candidates, their supporters, unions, and the Julia Patterson political machine. No, I'm going to say, I mean, this is my last shot.
Yeah, I know.
I am going to name names, including Rob McKenna. I also want to reflect on, well, let's just say, a bizarre election. Many have asked me why I was the target, and I think you'll see that when I get through, especially to the point of breaking the law. Let me read the law to you that nobody seems to want to enforce. RCW 4217A.335. It is the intent of the legislator to amend the current law to provide protection for candidates for public office against false statements of material facts sponsored with malice. That's 1999 C304 in Section 1. Back to the RCW. It is a violation of this chapter for a person to sponsor with actual malice, sponsor, not do it, a statement consulting or constituting libel or defamation per se under the following circumstances: political advertising or an electioneering communication that contains a false statement of material fact about a candidate for public office. They broke the law. It is the intent of this legislation to amend Chapter 4217 that somebody seemed to forget to read. It is the intent of the legislation that a violation of state law occurs if a person sponsors false statements about candidates in public advertising and electioneering communications. They broke the law. The legislation finds that in such circumstances, damages are presumed and do not need to be established when such statements are made with actual malice in political advertising and electioneering and constitute libel or defamation per se. The legislator finds that when such defamatory statements contain a false statement of material fact about a candidate for public office, they expose the candidate to contempt, ridicule, or reproach, and can deprive the candidate of public benefit, of public confidence, or prejudice him or her in her profession, trade, or vocation. They were running around telling people that I stole money from the city. Let me go on here. In addition to the false statements constituting libel, I received many calls telling me that Ladenburg's army of canvassers were saying I stole money from the city. The law was recodified to eliminate cynicism of the voting public by holding candidates liable for hiding behind political action groups. I sent an email to Barry and told him to stop lying about me and stop his folks from doing it. It was ignored. I'm grateful to get out of politics and move on with my life, but what I fear is that if this gets swept under the rug, like happened in 2009 with that election, that the only winners will be the biggest liars in these contests. It's amazing why the legislators create laws to protect the voting public and then refuses to enforce them. The law is the law, and the victim should not have to be the enforcer. It's even more amazing that the Attorney General is running for governor, yet he's not enforcing the state laws. If someone mugs or robs you of even $1, the cops will put him in jail immediately. But if it's your reputation that they mug you for, and some of us take our reputation more valuable than money, nobody does nothing. They just say, well, you know, that's just politics. Well, it's not. It's not just politics. The reason these laws were written was to stop that type of cynicism among the public, but nobody's enforcement. It's the state law, and the buck stops with Rob McKenna. If he doesn't enforce the state laws protecting our most basic voting rights, why does he think he should be the governor? So I'm going to hit them all on this whole thing. So you're going to have to bear with me. Most receive flyers lying about me, and there are numerous witnesses as to the verbal defamation about me stealing money from the city. If any of you other citizens have heard that, give me a call at 242-0716, because I know you have. It didn't just stop there. There's a lot of speculation behind all the outside money that paid to get control of this city government. All will expect a return on their investment, and you know who's going to have to pay. The Patterson Democrats made this a partisan race because they are carving out a majority-minority congressional district, while the Republicans and the independents idly twiddle their thumbs. The unions and demonstrators will not only have a free rein in CTAC, but will have support from those they help pay the way in. I hope that's not the case. But they're going to want paid back. One reason I became a target was because I told the Senators Murray and Cantwell in a meeting in D.C., then repeated it right here on this dais. And I think this is probably where it started, was how CTAC has been plunged into poverty by an influx of too many refugees without the proper support. I don't think that's fair to anyone, and especially to the refugees. I also said the affluent were leaving the city and no one replaces them because the schools are failing because of language barriers. That's really not the school's fault. I knew speaking the truth would get the racist card pulled on me, and it did, with a letter from Mia Gregerson for the Democrats to put for the party on their post on their home pages. What I did not realize until recently was the magnitude of the big business and social programs that's involved with all this. In 2006, the federal government spent $42 billion for immigrants and refugee programs on housing subsidies alone. $17 billion of $42 billion was on food stamps. $661 million on discriminating lawsuits. Not hard to see why the nonprofits have gotten involved in our city politics, in local politics. I made a statement after the 2009 election that Julia Patterson was campaigning against the change of government because it was easier to push unwanted programs on the public by the county because the city manager didn't have to answer to the citizens like a mayor would. Well, it's no wonder she came to my house with lasagna and wine and dined and with me and pretended to be my friend. She also promised she wouldn't get involved this next time around. Let me tell you how that's worked out. She has both her husband and her daughter working for the city, and now she has the majority of the council, neighbors of hers, progressives and liberals, to run the city. And if you think that a strong mayor has too much power, wait until a weak mayor has all of the council members or the majority of the council members on the same agenda. Will have more power than a strong mayor. The whole thing is a progressive dream come true. You can ethnically and socially engineer a community by concentrating everyone in one location without proper funding. And that's not fair to the people they're doing this with. And that in turn creates poverty, which encourages them to have more government programs to combat poverty. It's perpetual. There are other reasons. There's people that live on Angle Lake in million-dollar houses that are paying way less taxes because the property values in the city are artificially depressed. The new council, I'm assuming, will make up for some of this with B&O tax and utility tax, and hopefully it's delayed to prove me wrong. But rest assured, there will be new taxes. Some of the longtime union members need to know that politics trumps true unionism. I paid into the unions for 27 years, as did my employees, or employers. Yet the King County Labor Council sent out flyers violating RCW 4217-335, stating that I voted against firing police for 12 years. I didn't vote against them once, and they can't prove it, but they have to because that's the law. I don't have to prove it, they do. I never voted against them once, let alone for 12 years. They damaged my 40-year pro-public safety reputation, and the law says they got to prove it. Contrary to other insinuating lies that was brought out on me, I always supported the YMCA, and in conjunction with Frank Hansen, he was the mayor at the time, felt it was our responsibility to the taxpayers to stall a vote to entice our neighboring cities to donate more money to the Y because it was regional, even though the city of SeaTac was footing most of the bill. The real beef in this was because I said they wanted to give $1 million away for life memberships. I said, wait a minute, we have a human services programs. So I warned that it would be an illegal gift of public funds to target this to one section of the citizens. And I successfully advocated that we send it out to the whole city as passes, which in turn would help them get more memberships. By sticking to the taxpayers and the law, it was engineered to not only punish me, but to turn the voters against me. The good news is I get to move on, and I can thank several right here on this council for being part of these deceptions. Saying I spent twice as much money as the other council members was also a lie. Even if you took the biggest number that they picked, which was when I was the mayor, it wasn't double. They based it on 1 year while I was the mayor and paid for a council retreat on a lot of the expenses on my credit card. And even that wasn't twice as much. I saved the city $6,000 by not hiring a facilitator, and right around $2,000 by renting a suite rather than a conference room for our meetings. I paid for the suite, including all the necessary equipment and supplies for the retreat on my credit card. They used this to develop a lie for Ladenburg to make it look like I was wasting the city's money. The fact is, the more involved and dedicated an elected official is, the more money they spend on their expenses. Of course, nothing was mentioned that putting the city ahead of my business for years personally cost me many times more than other council members. I have some good friends in the fire department that I may lose after I make these statements. But it needs to be said because everyone else is afraid to. Elected officials know that the IAFF is a political action group. They make no bones about that. That's on their homepage. They cajole and they lobby political influences via endorsements that is akin to what lobbyist Jack Aberfarm went to jail for. My first experience was in 1997. I was told in an interview by them that if you will promise us to vote for a ladder truck for $1 million and 14 more firefighters, we'll endorse you. I said, no, I'm not going to offer up the citizens money for something I don't know whether we really need or not. Well, the rest of that's history. In the last 2 elections, they've only endorsed people from Angle Lake that belong to Angle Lake or the Manor Shore, or the Shore Club. I've read emails between Julia Patterson and John Gallup, the union president, back in 2009. So I know that our council members weren't the only ones setting up deals behind the scenes with the firefighters. Some of the positive things that's happened during my tenure started by spending months successfully convincing everyone to give up their legacy dream to build a city hall and buy this building. I fought for years to get a standalone senior center, but the way it was headed, I was happy to settle for combining with the community center, and then I only gave up because Darlene Thompson and John Thompson gave up, and we put it in the community center. I got on the design committee to fight for a first-class maintenance facility because many wanted to gut it to a shell of what it is today. I was a strong advocate for the Valley Ridge Park and was the mayor at its completion. Ask Kit Ledbetter, any of you, how much I worked on these 2 projects. I was an advocate for the Des Moines Creek Trail, and that's near completion. I was the first advocate on 154th Street improvements to connect trails with the Sound Transit System, also near completion. I championed revamping the city's misguided code enforcement program, including getting 57 illegal liens removed from people's private property. At the same time, I got an amnesty program to clean up decades of old code enforcement violations and fines by achieving compliance. I stopped staff-initiated kangaroo court system that was being used without repercussions or council input to blackball contractors doing business with the city. I established an ad hoc committee to receive input from citizens and businesses that were recipients of decades of ridiculous bureaucratic and rules and regulations. That's still operating today, and I hope it doesn't die because some think they were treated unfairly. They were. But that is why we put the committee together. And there's a lot of issues other than parking that still need to be addressed, so I hope that continues. I will be moving on, and my place is for sale. My only regret is that I will miss my longtime friends, especially those on this staff. And Mary, you know who they all are. I have had a great run and made a difference in SeaTac, but I'm looking forward to retiring. At my age, you plan your retirement backwards from the old folks' home. So Eileen and I are really looking forward to the next phase of our lives. I intend to golf in the sunny winter and fish in the summer. And I'd like to thank all of you who know the truth and has supported me these many years, and I wish you all good luck. And thank you for listening to all of the rhetoric. You don't have to believe any of it.
After that, I think I'll just, if I start talking, I'll cry. So, can we have a move for adjournment?
I am. I'm just enjoying it. We're getting out of
You
here.
want me to go on? I can go on for
Oh,
another hour.
I know you can.
Do I have a motion?
Let's adjourn.
But we don't want that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
let's see, we won't be
Well,
we
won't you
won't be
look at me? Won't you look at
back
me?
here before the birth of Christ, that celebration, and so I'm going to wish you all a wonderful time, or whatever.
I think you missed that.
Huh, I missed it.